dear students, welcome back to the channel. So, as you can see from the description below, today I'll be starting a new topic, that is limits. Okay, now this topic will be continued in three parts. Okay, so in today's video, in the starting video, I will be discussing what is limit, how do you define it, and what are one-sided limits. Okay, this topic is very important for your JEE Mains and Advanced. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
So let's begin the topic limits. Now, as already discussed, this part is under the topic differential calculus. Okay, calculus, we have two parts. We have integral calculus and we have differential calculus. So, limits is a part of our differential calculus. Now, before going further into details, first of all, let us understand or have an intuitive idea about what exactly is a limit. For that, let us suppose f is a function that is defined in a particular interval. Defined in an interval containing a point x equal to a. Now here one thing we have to note, except possibly at x equal to a. Now I am coming to that what exactly we mean by that particular line, except possibly at x equal to a. Then what does the limit means? So suppose f is a function that we have defined in a particular interval that consists of this point x equal to a, we mean, or rather we write the limit of that particular function as limit x tends to a fx. So let us understand that what exactly we mean by this sentence and what does this line exactly mean. Now this is a notation how we write limit x tends to a fx. Now informally we say that limit x tends to a fx is a real number, capital L, such that fx is arbitrarily close to L. Okay, so here fx will be, limit will be a real number such that fx is arbitrarily close to L if x is chosen to be sufficiently nearer or close to the value a. So if I draw a graph like this, suppose this is my graph, this is my x-axis and this is y equal to fx, that is the function. Now I am just taking a random graph over here just like this and I am saying that this is the function and let me take, this is my a, this is my value x equal to a. Now here the function, I am taking a very small interval, almost negligible, because as I have already said that it has to be sufficiently close to a except for the point x equal to a. Now if it is already at x equal to a, I am not considering that. I am not considering at exactly point a. I am considering a neighborhood, a small position or a small neighborhood near the value a, x equal to a. Now, if I draw a graph or try to represent the value, what is shown over here in the graph, it is like this. So, this is my point and this is my point. And if I can denote a also, here is the point. So, now if I take the y value, or that is the y equal to fx value, you will see rather that this is almost very close to each other. Now if I take the midpoint to be L, then both the values are very close to L. So when this occurs, we say that limit fx tends to a is L. And that is exactly what we mean by the definition of a limit. So basically, we will take a small neighborhood for the point A, and for that particular value, we will try to mark, or rather we have tried to show here that in the graph we are getting a value y equal to fx. So if the neighborhood of A is very close to each other, so is the neighborhood of the real number L, and that is what is called limit. Now, the question is it always necessary that a limit will exist? That is, limit existence, is it a compulsion? It will always exist? Or there might be cases where the limit may or may not exist as well. So basically, when we don't get any such L, we say limit x tends to a fx does not exist. For example, let us take a function where when x is less than 0, my fx will be 0, and when x is greater than 0, then my function will be this. So let us write the function over here, that is fx is equal to 0 when x is less than 0, and it is 1 when x is greater than 0. Okay. Now what happened? Let me take a very small interval near the 0. So this is my point 0, x equal to 0. This is the exact point, x equal to 0. Now I am taking a very small interval near the point 0. So let me highlight that part. So let me take a very small point. Now as you can see, when I am going to the left side, it is pointing towards these values, that is the 0. But when I am just slightly deviating from the exact point 0, I am straight away jumping to this value 1. So in this case, although I am trying to take a very close neighborhood, a very close point near the point 0, I can see that the values of fx, that is the function, is not tending towards a particular value. It's drastically changing. Now you might think that okay, 0 and 1 are not that very far away. Till whatever knowledge we had, yes, it was not far away if we just consider the real numbers, natural numbers. Yes, it is not that far away if we just consider the integers. But what did I say? I said that L is actually a real number. And we know that in a real number line between 0 and 1, there are infinitely many points present. So, 0 and 1 in this case is very far away from each other, and hence we cannot say that the limit exists in this case. Now students, you might think, or you might notice that I have mentioned one thing. I have talked about the left hand side and the right hand side. So our next topic is going to be the left hand limit and the right hand limit. So my next topic is left hand limit. was talking about one of the left direction and on the right direction of 0. I was given this function. I was saying that on the left hand side it is going towards the value 0, while on the right hand side it is going to the value 1. Now this is what I am talking about, left hand limit and right hand limit. That means a function doesn't necessarily have to be going on the same direction in a particular point. So now the topic is one-sided limit, and the first under this category is left-hand limit. So left-hand limit is, if I take the same old example, I can see here this was the point 0. Now forget about the right-hand side. I will just consider a very small neighborhood or a very small interval on the left side or the left hand side of the 0 point, a very small one. Okay, now you can see however small I take, this function will always give me the value 0, that is fx will be 0 when x is less than 0. So I can say that for this function the left hand limit is actually 0. So by that, what is the definition of left hand limit and how do we denote it? So the notation for left hand limit is x tends to a minus. Now what is this minus for? This minus represents the left hand side, because क्या होता है generally, suppose this is my point A. If I draw it on a number line, this is my exact point A. So if I have to go on the left hand side, we generally subtract something, right? So that is the condition, that is the notation, that is the meaning of the notation. Why do we write minus sign? Basically to represent anything which is moved towards the left is called the a minus. So limit x tends to a minus fx equal to L if we can make fx arbitrarily close to L, the limit L, by choosing x to lie in a sufficiently small open interval, sufficiently small interval to the left of A. That is A minus delta A for some delta greater than 0. Now what is this delta? This delta represents a very small value that we are taking, because yes, I am taking between 0 and maybe this is minus 0.000001 like this. So this is what 99, right, like this, minus 0.000099. So we have to subtract some value from 0 to get that particular number, A minus delta and A. Again, yes, definitely delta has to be greater than 0, but it should be again very sufficiently small, very small, and that is our left hand limit. In the same way, we also have the right hand limit. As you can see, if I take any value, however small I take in the right hand side of the 0, I will always get the value 1. So the same thing, now if I write, this will become right hand limit. If I take right hand limit, so this will now be A plus if we can make fx arbitrarily close to L by choosing x to lie in a sufficiently small interval to the right of A. So right now I will be considering right of A. That is, here is the main change that comes. Instead of A minus delta and A, we have A comma A plus delta. This is what we will deal with. So this is for our right hand limit, and in right hand limit again we have a plus, and for left hand limit we have a minus. So from here we get a very important note that we should learn, and we should note that for the left hand limit, the values of the function that are on the left hand side of the function, values of fx that are on the left hand side, left side of function are important, definitely, and same goes for right hand side. For right hand side, the right hand limit, right side of the function is important. So left hand limit and right hand limits, as the name suggests, basically अगर मुझे लेफ्ट हैंड लिमिट देखना है तो फिर मुझे लेफ्ट का वैल्यू ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है, एंड इफ आई हैव टू सी द राइट हैंड लिमिट तो ऑब्वियसली मुझे राइट का वैल्यू देखना है. प्रिटी सिंपल एंड प्रिटी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड. अब लेफ्ट हैंड लिमिट, राइट हैंड लिमिट, व्हाई डू वी नीड टू नो? बिकॉज now comes the most important note or tricks, important thing to learn, that is a limit can only exist, limit of a function can only exist if, again if stands for if and only if, first of all left hand limit and right hand limit, I am writing in short, RHL and LHL both have to exist. Okay, both have to exist, and not only exist, they also have to be equal. So RHL will be equal to LHL. If this happens, only then we can say that limit fx, where x tends to 0, is equal to L. If limit x tends to a minus is L, and limit x tends to a plus is also L. If this happens, then we can say that yes, the limit of my function exists and this is the value. So students, now did you ever think that okay fine, we are having a left hand limit, we are definitely having a right hand limit, but is it always necessary that we have to have a left hand limit and right hand limit as well? That is the existence of one-sided limit important, necessary, or it doesn't matter? So let us go straight to that particular topic, that whether the existence of the limit on one side is important or a necessary condition or not. So for explaining the topic of the existence of one-sided limit, we will take a very important example over here, and that is fx is equal to sine 1 by x, where x is not equal to 0. Now why do I have to mention that x is not equal to 0? Definitely because if x becomes 0, then the function will become obsolete or it is not defined. Now I want the function to be defined. So definitely I am not going to be taking x equal to 0. Now the question is, does limit x tends to 0 plus fx exist or not? Now over here, one thing please note it all of you. Here I have written that x cannot be equal to 0, but then I am asking you that x should be tending towards 0. Now in the definition, I had said that limit has to be close to the point x equal to a, except possibly at x equal to a. it should be near to x equal to a, but you can omit the exact point a. You may or may not take it as well, because we have another topic that you will learn later, continuity. In the continuity, it is a necessity that it has to be the same as x equal to a, but it's not so in case of your limit. लिमिट में नेसेसरी नहीं है कि फंक्शन को वही पॉइंट में, द पॉइंट आई एम डिफाइनिंग और द पॉइंट जिसके आसपास हम लोग ढूंढ रहे हैं लिमिट, उसमें एग्जैक्टली रहना ही होगा, नॉट नेसेसरी. ओके, सो I have taken the function sin 1 by x, and definitely I cannot take x not equal to 0, because in x equal to 0 it will be your undefined. कोई बात नहीं, no problem. But what do we have? A limit, right hand limit and left hand limit. That was my question. So देखते हैं क्या होता है इसमें. So let fx equal to sin 1 by x. Now x is equal to 1 by n pi if I take, where n belongs to your natural number, then sin 1 by x will become similar to sin n pi, right? It will become sin n pi, that is equal to 0. Now similarly, if I take x equal to 2n plus 1 pi by 2, then sin 1 by x will be equal to sin 2n plus 1 pi by 2, which is minus 1 to the power n. Now it depends upon the n whether it is whether it is an even number or an odd number. So here comes the problem. देखो 2n plus 1 pi by 2. Okay, so x is not equal to 0 I have taken, fine, but the problem I am arising is I am not getting a fixed value. Depending upon n, मेरा plus जाएगा या फिर minus होगा. In fact, what happens? In fact, if x is belonging to this particular interval, that is 1 by x is belonging to the particular interval 2n pi to 2n pi plus pi by 2, we will see that x will be lying between 1 by 2n pi to 2n pi plus pi by 2, it will get opposite, comma 2n pi. Then fx will actually take all the value that comes between minus 0 and 1. Fx will be taking values between 0 and 1. Why so? If I draw the graph, let me draw the graph now. A sin x curve looks like this. At the point x equal to 0, it is 0, fine, but I am taking the points pi by 4, pi by 2, pi. The value is like this. It's an oscillating function. This is your minus 1, this is your plus 1, and this is your minus 1. So your function will look something like this, which is an oscillating function. So even though I am taking a very close neighborhood, I can see that it is fluctuating a lot between the values. Okay, so here is why we cannot say that even the left hand limit and the right hand limit exist separately. Okay, if I take on the left hand side, I can see that the value is ranging between minus 1 to 0 within a very small change in interval, right? I am taking a very small change in interval, but still then you can see that the values is constantly decreasing. And so for this case, if I take on the right hand side, I can see that even if I take a very minute change, it still is changing drastically. So in this case, neither our left hand limit nor our right hand limit exist for those cases. So it's not always necessary, rather it's not a necessity that the left hand limit and the right hand limit also has to separately exist. So basically for any closed interval near 0, sin 1 by x cannot be defined because it keeps on oscillating between the value minus 1 to 1, and that is why we cannot either get a left hand limit or a right hand limit. Now with that knowledge, we finally can go into the actual or the rigorous definition of our limit. And what is that? Rigorous definition of limit. Now we have already learned the informal definition. Yes, it's the same thing, but we will be using some new terms and more mathematical reasoning over here. So we say that a limit x tends to a fx exists and is equal to the value L if for a given epsilon greater than 0 there exists a delta greater than 0 such that if 0 less than equal to mod x minus a less than delta, then fx minus L is less than epsilon. Now yes, I know that there are a lot of terms here, but don't worry, I am explaining it with the and making it easy with the graph. So there are two important things that you need to know. This x minus a is less than delta but greater than 0, and what is this fx minus L less than epsilon. So let me draw a graph and write it down. So if this is the function, okay, now suppose this is the function, okay, and or not the function, this is the point I am taking a, and I am considering a very close neighborhood near a. Let me write it again. And this is the point where my L or the limit is defined. So how does by the definition it looks like? So I'm taking a small neighborhood L minus epsilon and L plus epsilon. So if I draw back this lines and this is where it touches, and then take it in the x-axis, so this is a minus delta and this is a plus delta. So basically what is happening, the reason we are taking mod over here is I am taking both the left hand limit and the right hand limit in this case, because x minus a, if it is less than delta, then we get x equal to delta plus a, and again if I take the negative part, then we have minus x plus a less than delta, and if we solve this we get x a minus delta is less than equal to x. So क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे? Basically what I am trying to say is limit एक particular value L तभी होता है जब I take the value of x equal to a, I consider very close neighborhoods around that point a, and I see that where those points are tending to in the function. As I can see, I am not taking the exact point a. What I am doing, I am taking the nearby values over here. Okay, I am taking the nearby values over here. So nearby values लेने से क्या हो रहा है? Obviously it is tending somewhere around L and L minus somewhere around L. तो L के ऊपर नीचे हो रहा है, not exactly L. L के ऊपर नीचे हो रहा है, but I can jot it down and I can say that वो significantly this is so small that we can take it as L also. That means maybe L, if it is maybe 1, then L minus and L plus are so small that it doesn't make a difference. Maybe L plus, that actually this will be L plus and this will be L minus. Okay, so L plus, it's so small, maybe around like this. Now you can see it very clearly that this is a very small change, so it doesn't matter. But then why are we not writing it exactly L? Why are we saying it is tending towards L? Dekho, yes, it's a very small change, I agree, but still it's not equal to L. So that is what is limit. Limit, here the definition is saying that it will exist if for small changes of x we are getting very small changes in y as well, and then we can say that the function exists. I hope this is now clear to all. Now that we have done the rigorous definition, let us see what is delta and epsilon. This is called delta and this is called epsilon. Now remember that epsilon and delta are related to each other, and delta is very much related to, or rather dependent on, epsilon. Dependent on epsilon. So if I have to make epsilon smaller, I have to remember that delta will again be much smaller than epsilon. Okay, because changes what is there in our hand, कौन सा change मेरे पास है? मेरे पास change है delta का, x का value I can change, that is in my hand, but उसके according what the value I am getting in y is not in our hand. So if I want that particular change will be small, then I have to keep in mind that delta should be very small than epsilon. This is what we have to remember. So let us consider a function and understand what exactly are we trying to say over here. So let us take the function fx equal to x square. So now as we know that fx equal to x square is a parabola. So intuitively by seeing the graph we can already understand that if I take limit x tends to 0 fx, it will come 0, because I can see that if I take a very small difference of from 0, it is somewhere lying near 0 as well. But let us try to prove it by the epsilon delta definition that we have just learnt. Okay, so now as we had said that epsilon has to be greater than 0, so now for that we will be needing, yes, delta is related or dependent on epsilon. So once we have decided on the delta, only then we should proceed. Once we have got our epsilon, decided on our epsilon, then we should be deciding our delta. So we want a delta greater than 0 such that 0 x minus 0 is less than delta. Now where does this 0 comes from? This. Okay, so if here it is not 0, it's 1, then this will be 1. If it is 2, then it will be 2. Basically whatever tending the limit is tending, in that we have to take. Okay, so as x tends x minus 0 is less than delta, we can say that fx minus 0 will be less than epsilon. So 0 mod x less than mod x is less than delta, and from here we can say that fx, that is the x square, is less than epsilon. Okay, so this just by the definition of epsilon and delta we have got. Now what will happen if we take mod x is less than delta, then x square is less than delta square. I'm just squaring it. Now we have also said that x square is less than epsilon. Okay, now we want x square to be less than epsilon. So if we choose now delta to be equal to root over of epsilon, then mod x is less than delta, which implies x square is less than delta square equal to epsilon. Okay, so yes, I'm getting x square is less than epsilon, and for delta greater than 0, if epsilon is greater than 0, what do we get? So what we have done here is, I had taken x is less than 0 and from there fx is less than epsilon. Now fx was x square, so I wrote it like if x square is less than epsilon, then it has to be less than delta square also, and what I took, delta square is equal to epsilon, so my value of delta became f root over of epsilon. Definitely it is less than your epsilon. Root over of epsilon will always be lesser than epsilon. So from the delta definition, or so from the epsilon delta definition, finally what do we arrive from here, or what do we get? It is follows that, or it follows limit x tends to 0, fx is equal to 0. Okay, so this is my epsilon delta definition. So now we will straight away go to the properties of limits. The properties of limits are very easy and very easy to understand, very simple. It's basically just addition and subtraction. So let's start that. So properties of limit. So first is my sum rule. Now suppose fx and gx are the two functions such that the limit x tends to a fx exists and the limit x tends to a gx also exists. Okay, so keep this in mind that both the function has to exist in this function. Okay, not just one, not just two, both the function has to be defined and as well as exist over here. Okay, in the same format, that is x tends to a. Both will be tending towards the same point. I cannot take different points. So then limit x tends to a fx plus gx will exist, and what will be the value? This is where it gets interesting. It will be equal to, if I had separately taken the values together, that is if limit x tends to a fx plus limit x tends to a gx. That means if limit x tends to a is L1 and limit gx is L2, then this will be equal to L1 plus L2. Okay, so basically briefly if I have to say, then limit of the sum of function is sum of the limits of the function. Okay, मतलब दो limits को if I am adding two functions together and then I'm trying to find the limit, basically it will be same as finding the limit separately and adding them. Okay, but yes, a very important thing is both of them have to exist. It's not like one will exist and the other will not, then it's not possible, otherwise it is. So let us do a very quick proof for this particular sum. So as I have already taken L1 and L2 to be the function limit individually, so I am taking the same thing over here. Again I am proving it with your epsilon delta part. Let epsilon is greater than 0 be given. Since limit extends to a fx equal to L1, then there exists delta 1 greater than 0 such that 0 x minus a delta 1 fx minus L1 is less than epsilon by 2. Now you must be thinking that why have I taken epsilon by 2? I'm coming to it. Similarly, I can also take that x minus a is less than delta 2. So remember that they are two different functions, so the deltas will also be different. So here also fx minus L2 is less than epsilon by 2. Basically what I am trying to do is at the end of the function you have to show that doesn't matter however I am trying to take the function, the final limit is always equal to epsilon. Okay, so now that we have got this, we can write fx plus gx minus L1 plus L2 is equal to fx minus L1 plus fx gx minus L2. Now as we know that same thing in the mod, I can separate it out. I can write fx minus L1 plus gx minus L2. I can separate it out. So this is less than epsilon by 2 plus epsilon by 2, which is equal to epsilon. Okay, so yes, I can see that even though I had taken separately, I didn't have the sum for limit for the sum, but I can still get it by individually adding their sums of the limit. In the same manner, we have some other properties as well, but the proofs of all of them are in the same way. So what is the second thing? After addition we have subtraction. So limit x tends to a fx minus gx will be equal to limit of x tends to a fx minus limit x tends to a gx, which is equal to L1 minus L2. If we have a scalar multiplication like limit x tends to a alpha fx, where alpha is a scalar, so alpha limit x tends to a fx. If we have multiplication, still the process remains same. F gx is equal to limit of x tends to a fx into gx. The last but not the least, we have division. F by gx is equal to limit x tends to a fx by gx. And that's it, my students. In today's video we will be covering till properties of limits. Please stay tuned for my next video where I will be dealing with how to solve sums in various methods. Rationalization, factorization, 0 by 0 form, sandwich theorem, and lots more to come. So stay tuned and we will be meeting you in the next video.
So students, that is it for today. Don't forget that this is just the first part of the video. For more such videos, subscribe the channel and like the video.